Hi, Lapa. It's 6 o'clock, Chairman.
Thank you. Why do they feel?
You know how I like to start on time?
I know. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Winnebago County Board meeting. Tonight is Thursday, August 10th, 2023. It's shortly after 6 o'clock. Tonight's invocation and pledge allegiance is given by Board Member Speaker McCarthy. Please stand.
Most Heavenly Father, we come to you before you on this Thursday evening for guidance and protection for those, especially with our first responders, and guidance when it comes to all of our votes and decisions that need to be made between one another, that you provide us exactly with the common sense you instill with us, and that the decisions we do make do represent our values, your values, and the proper values that once again you instill with us. So all this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. So we do not have any agenda announcements this evening. Clerk Gummo, can you please call the roll?
Certainly. Thank you, Chairman. We will start with Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Tassoni. Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Webster. Mr. Arena. Mr. Booker. Mr. Butita. Mrs. Crosby. Ms. Fellers. Mrs. Gorel. Mr. Guevara. Ms. Hansard. Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Lindmark. Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McDonald. Mr. Neighbors. Mr. Penny. Mr. Salgado. Mr. Scroll. Thank you all. Chairman, that is 15 board members present, 5 board members absent.
Thank you, Clerk Gummo. We do have a quorum this evening. Ms. Gorel?
I was so shocked today when I got here and our chairman told me that Pearl Hawks had died, and many of us on this board will remember Pearl Hawks. She served here on this board for 14 years, and I'd like to take just a moment to recognize one of the former Winnebago County members. Pearl, she passed away last weekend at the age of 81. She had some health problems over the years. And Pearl not only served 14 years on the Winnebago County Board, she also served many years on the Winnebago County Housing Authority and the Winnebago Homes Association boards from November of '98 to November of 2012. Pearl both supported and helped many developed programs to the Housing Authority over the years. Before she had to leave the board because of her health concerns, but not before she created roughly 600 new homes for local families that otherwise could not afford a safe place to live. One of the things she did get complete, and by the way, this is through, this is Hope 6 for any of you who remember the county doing Hope 6. And that's where those 600 homes are. And before she left the board, she said to me, one of these days they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with Springfield Avenue, because it had all been planned out, and we do still have the that in our building department, because it would have been all homes, and it would have started from West State going down Springfield down to South Main. There should have been some subdivisions in there, and that never did get done. That still needs to be done. And the home she built, she did that because of the fact we want to have safer places for people to live. She was a person who really, she didn't have to preach Christianity because she was. And she worked so hard for the people that she represented, but also for many, many other people. And Pearl also supported community policing in the Rock House that created housing for Rockford police officers and their families in high crime neighborhoods, helping to turn those neighborhoods into safer communities. So I just, I'm sorry, but I'm very emotional about this right now. It's a great lady that we have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Gorel. Mr. Webster?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'll follow up on that. I had the distinct pleasure of working with Pearl myself when I got on board. And Pearl was quite a lady in every sense of the word. She was very, very polite, kind of demure, very fashionable. Those prove that. She also had her own dress shop on Broadway. And she was such a pleasure to work with. She chaired our Public Works Committee meeting. And those of you that know me know I get a little riled sometimes about things when I'm trying to make a point and that. And Pearl, being around Pearl, her presence had some kind of way of just calming me down. I was calmer when I was around Pearl than anyone else. And I think she had that effect on people. She was pretty much quiet, but she had a quiet way of making her point on things and getting her point across. So I remember her very fondly, and so I would say rest in peace, Pearl. We miss you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Mr. Neighbors?
Pearl, she was a great mentor to me when I served on the board back in 2012, just for the 4 months that I was here. And she continued to be a mentor to me. Pearl is also my cousin. And she's a family member, and I haven't seen her in a long time. A week before she died, I got a call that we had a family reunion that I didn't know anything about. And she was there giving the family history, and a lot of it I didn't know, and I was supposed to meet her again to get more, and then she died a week later. So continue to love each other, make sure you speak to each other, you know, whenever you had the opportunity, make them more often than not. Her funeral services will be Friday, August 18th at Pilgrim Baptist Church. The visitation will be from 9 to 11. The funeral service will start at 11 a.m. and it will be at, the address is 1703 South Central Avenue.
Thank you. Sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
So I'd also like to acknowledge at this time the loss of Joanna Pomelia. She is the mother to former Rockford Police Detective Sergeant Mary Ogden and Kevin Ogden of the Sheriff's Department. Joanna passed away peacefully last week at the age of 78. So our hearts go out to the families of both these wonderful women as we mourn their loss. Both were loving wives, mothers, grandmothers, and friends to all in the community and will be deeply missed. So please join me in a moment of silence for these two wonderful ladies. Please stand. Okay, so we now have the awards presentations, public hearings, and public participation. We have two speakers tonight for public participation. I'm going to read a short comment here and then call the speakers up. So the comments shall be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers may not address zoning matters which are pending before the ZBA, zoning committee, or the county board. Personnel matters or pending or threatened litigation may not be addressed in open session. An individual may speak a maximum of 3 times per calendar year on the same topic. This prohibition shall include the repetition of the same topic and a statement on what is purported to be a different topic. Personal attacks or inappropriate language of any sort will not be tolerated. Our first speaker is Reverend Earl Dotson, Sr. Please come forward.
The Bible, David and Samuel, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Such biblical disclosures of faith makes me think of why I discuss Westside Rockford development in the context of racial equality and its connection to our national defense. A 4-star general by the name of General Minahan was quoted on July the 30th of this year that we will be at war with Communist China in 2025. He has 110,000 troops under his command, headquartered just outside of St. Louis, Missouri, in southern Illinois. He says he hopes he is wrong, but he is ready and wants his troops to be ready. He is convinced we are woefully ill-prepared for war with China, who is constantly challenging America, dangerously so around the globe. Yet, the alarm bells fall on deaf ears. I am with the Ministers for Manufacturing out of Chicago, working with a group called Manufacturing and Digital. Siemens, the giant German manufacturer, is greatly involved, along with other named global corporations. But the involvement with my group is deliberately distant, sadly. But we are pressing them, mentioning a young black physicist from Rockford named Dr. Elliot Treadwell, was involved in a STEM program at Chicago State University, benefiting the national defense. I was in conversation with them today, but the recognition of black citizen participation is slow. This is like Rockford, building housing that many on West Side of Rockford can't afford, instead of factories manufacturing munitions for our national defense, which President Biden feels is imperative. The economic impact by comparison is shameful. Manufacturing jobs average $95,000 a year compared to service jobs that may be 2/3 of that. The economic benefits for West Side Rockford is large. Our Chicago plans call for 65 acres to start advanced manufacturing, so we can prepare to turn to flight the armies of the enemies. I too hope General Minahan is wrong. God help us in our present state.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Denzel Winter.
Good morning, Chairman of the board and board members. I'm here to speak up on neighborhood policing. And I have a problem with, I can't go out to Browns Park without seeing young men pulled over to the side for no reason. And this is starting to get to the point where our young black men are not going to be trusting the police officers, because every time you turn around, they come from playing basketball. They stopped over there, lights flashing and everything, and I'm wondering what's going on. And it shouldn't be that way. The other week, y'all had nights out, and I know the city, they have things where for the young people. If we are going to be able to curb the violence that's going on in our neighborhood, we're going to have to do something with the children. We're going to have to reach out for them. We're going to have a program for them. And you know, I have young grandbabies, and the youngest is 2 years old. And one of the reasons why I have not left Rockford is because I want to see them grow. And my greatest concern is that, you know, I don't ever want to see anything happen to any of them. And you know, if we work together, we can make this community a community, and not be polarizing each other against one another. Some of my friends sitting right there, Mr. Booker was one of my best friends, and he will tell you that when we played football together, we had a mixture of people on that team, and the talent was so good, and the talent is still here. And you know, we formed a bond, and we still have that bond. And that's what I want for my grandkids, to have a bond with the community, have a bond with the people that are supposed to be protecting them. I also have a nephew that just graduated. He's a police officer down in Farmer City. And you know, he's doing pretty good. And I don't want nobody ever saying that I don't get along with the police, because I do. I know that I have to have them when I get ready to call for help. And I should be able to help them if they need help out there. So I just want to bring it up to, you know, we need to talk more about policing and getting our children involved, because if we don't, we're going to have the problems we have with children with running around here with guns and stuff. You know, because that's not right. That's not right. Our children shouldn't be armed like they're in over there in Ukraine somewhere. You know, they need to grow up. They need a chance in life. And I think if we get together, we can do that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda is the approval of minutes. May I entertain a motion to approve the July 13, 2023 minutes and lay over the July 27, 2023 minutes. We have a motion by Mr. Webster and a second by Mr. Thompson. Is there any discussion on the minutes? All right, hearing none, are there any board members opposed to the approval of the minutes and the layover of the minutes? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Next, the consent agenda. May I entertain a motion to approve the raffle report and the auditor's report. We have a motion by Mr. Lindmark, a second by Mr. Thompson. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none. Oh, Mr. Well noted. Thank you. All right, so we have an abstention from Mr. Neighbors on the raffle report. Any other board member discussion? All right, hearing none. Any board members opposed to the raffle report or the auditor's report? Very good. Please cast a yes for all other members present. Next is the appointments per county board rules. The board chairman appointments require a 30-day layover unless there is suspension of the rule. Tonight's the Four River Sanitation District. The annual compensation is $6,000. The applicant is Richard Maurus. It's a new appointment to serve the remainder of a 3-year term that expires in April 30th of 2024. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask for a motion to suspend the rules and apologize quickly to all my colleagues for doing that so last minute, but on my way to the meeting, Rick Pollack, who some of you know used to serve on this board also, is now the president of the Four River Sanitation Authority, and he asked respectfully if we could get the appointee seated in this month's meeting because they're about to embark on their budget situation. And on a five-member board, they're down to 4 people. You know, if one person misses a meeting, it could be pretty impactful. And he just asked if we could give it a shot to get it done tonight. So I am making that motion to suspend the rules to vote on Mr. Maurus tonight.
So a motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Sweeney, a second by Mr. McDonald. Are there any board members opposed to the suspension of the rules for this appointment? Hearing none, please cast a yes for all members present. The rules are suspended. Mr. Sweeney.
I'll move his appointment.
Moved by Mr. Sweeney, second by Mr. McDonald, to the approval of Mr. Richard Maurus to the Four Rivers Sanitation District. Is there any discussion on this appointment? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this appointment to the Four Rivers Sanitation District? Mr. Booker is opposed. Please cast a yes for all other members present. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to reports of standing committees. Finance Committee, Mr. Butita.
Okay, tonight we have 5 ordinances and 1 resolution. The 5 ordinances all pertain to budget amendments for ARP funds Phase 4, and we're just going to read these in for layover. First one will be an ordinance for a budget amendment to provide funds for the Winnebago County Highway Department for the Riverside Boulevard multi-use path study. Second one is an ordinance for a budget amendment to fund the Boys and Girls Club addressing their fire alarm system. Next is an ordinance for a budget amendment to provide funds to the Boys and Girls Club for a new HVAC system. Next is an ordinance for a budget amendment to fund the Zion West Enterprise van purchase. And lastly, we have an ordinance for a budget amendment to fund a carpet purchase for Inner City Reconstruction Group building. We'll lay those over.
So all 5 of those ordinances will be laid over.
And then we have 1 resolution it's a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2024 budget policy, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Butita, second by Mr. Sweeney. Discussion on your part, Mr. Butita?
Only that this is something we've been working on throughout the summer, and we finally got to the point where we've got it agreed, and just presenting it for tonight's budget.
Thank you. Any board member discussion on the resolution? Very good. Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast yes for all members present. Mr. Butita.
And that'll do it for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Butita. The Zoning Committee, Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Chairman. We have no report.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Economic Development Committee, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no report.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Operation Administrative Committee, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 1 resolution this evening. It's a resolution establishing the county holiday schedule for 2024, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. McDonald, second by Ms. Hansert. Is there any discussion, Mr. McDonald, on your part? Any board member discussion on the holiday schedule for 2024? Hearing none. Any board members opposed to the holiday schedule of 2024? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes the report.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Public Works Committee, Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Chairman. No report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Tassoni. I want to publicly thank you for the Four Rivers Sanitation District's hard work last night on the Baxter Road spill and the other Viking chemical spill. So thank you for all your hard work. Public Safety and Judiciary Committee, Mr. Lindmark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Lindmark. Unfinished business. Any unfinished business in front of the board this evening? Very good. Any new business in front of the board this evening? Mr. Lindmark.
I'd just like to mention passing of Chief Dominic Aspero also. I believe we talked about it previous meeting,
Yes.
but great man, class act. The community will really miss him. Thank you.
Yes. Condolences to the family again. So announcements and communications. Clerk Gummow.
Thank you, Chairman. The items listed below were received as correspondence.
Very good. Any other announcements or communications from board members this evening? None. Mr. Webster, motions to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Anybody want to stay for the open meeting of this? No? Because we are going to be going into a committee of the whole, so everybody stay tuned here. All right, we're adjourned. Next, I'd like to call the order of the Committee of the Whole. Clerk Gummow, can you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will start with Mr. Tassoni.
Present.
Mr. Thompson. Here. Mr. Webster? Mr. Arena? Mr. Booker?
Present.
Mr. Butita? Mrs. Crosby? Ms. Fellers? Ms. Gorel? Mr. Guevara? Ms. Hansard? Mr. Hoffman? Mr. Lindmark? Mr. McCarthy? Mr. McDonald? Mr. Neighbors? Mr. Penny? Mr. Salgado? Mr. Scroll? Mr. Sweeney? Thank you all for still being here. Chairman, that is 15 board members present, 5 board members absent.
Very good. We do have a quorum for the committee of the whole. Is there any public speakers tonight for public comment? None? Very good. So we move on to our budget presentation by Mr. Steve Schultz, our Chief Financial Officer. Mr. Schultz.
Chris, I'm just wondering if we're going to have that up on the screen. I want to start out by just recognizing that this over 300-page document that you have in front of you represents a huge amount of work from all of our departments, our electeds, obviously the staff in the finance department, Molly Terranoni, Ross Chapman, and it's been my privilege to work with these folks in the preparation of this budget. This is going to be a high-level overview. You have a month with this document prior to the layover, which is a number of weeks from now, and then you also will have an additional 3 weeks after the layover before the vote. So I'll be available to the extent that you'd like to meet with me individually or as subgroups. I'd be happy to do that with your caucus if that would be valuable to you. So make myself available for that. So this year's budget is for 23-24, believe it or not. We're already moving that far ahead in time. We have our 2 main operating funds, the general fund and the public safety sales tax fund. And then much of the reason why this book is so large is we have quite a number of additional funds. We have elected officers that have, officials that have fee funds, and they're designated for particular purposes. We have our highway funds, and we have our bond funds, and then there are a few other funds beyond that. Some of the key items, the significant items in terms of the current year's budget, we decreased the levy to related to the general fund. We shifted dollars from the general fund over to the highway department. There's been a lot of conversation at the board level about how we need more resources for roads, and so we're doing that in a variety of ways, including moving some of the levy over there. We've increased the levy apportionment to River Bluff, and we've talked about that, and I have a slide on that a little bit later. The tort fund, which got $4 million of the transfer into it from the general fund in the current fiscal year, we increased the tort fund portion of the levy because we've had some challenges in that fund. We also needed by statute to increase the amount that goes to the veterans in the levy, and so we've done that. We also have the reduction in revenue because of the Safety Act, and you're all familiar with that. The improved revenue from multiple sources. The sales tax revenue is up. The state income tax is up. We have our contracted and non-union salary increases, and you know that some of those were substantial. We continue to see an improved situation with our IMRF fund, and the issuance of bond a number of years ago was a very strategic move on the part of the county and the board, and it's paying dividends going forward. We do have rising health insurance costs. We've held those premiums stable for employees, but we have been gradually dipping into reserves, so that's something that's on our radar. And I already mentioned the tort fund deficit. That's been a challenge for us. This 23-24 budget has 24 new positions. I've hit some of the highlights there, including 6 corrections officers, the security director, the 911 training coordinator, 4 assistant state's attorneys, 3 assistant public defenders, a public defender investigator, a chief operating officer, highway mechanic, and then 6 other positions, a variety of positions. The general fund budgeted expenses and transfers. The reason I'm putting that expenses and transfers together in that number is because we know the transfers are frequently a significant line item. So you see we're about just under $72 million in combined expenses. The reason that the projected actual for 22-23 is just a little bit higher than that is because of, again, the tort fund. $4 million was a very significant transfer from the general fund to the tort fund. We also had $5.6 million of bond payments, including the paying off ahead of time of some bonds, and so that's why it was a bigger number this year than it is next year. In the public safety sales tax, again, expenses and transfers combined, that number has gone up primarily because of operating expense increases. We also have transfers in there as well, but we saw a significant increase in the operating budget there. We do have and have had flexibility as to where we budget between the general fund and the public safety sales tax fund in relation to a number of different things that we do in the criminal justice system. And so we did shift some dollars from the general fund over into the public safety sales tax fund to recognize a rebalancing that was, we had an opportunity to do that. You're familiar now with the capital improvement plan budgets. That's something that you've already seen in multiple iterations. This year, we're very pleased that we were able to incorporate that and have out of our general revenue, as well as you see the 50% of the casino revenue, the video gaming revenue. We do have a carryover balance from fiscal year 23 from the sources that you as a board earmarked to go toward capital improvement projects. We also have some projects that are going to carry over from the current year into the next year. And that appears here on this slide. Of that $12,182,000, about $5 million of that is really from prior year projects that we just weren't able to get completed. And a lot of the time when we do these SIP budgets, we target a particular period of time, but by the time we go through the process of evaluating the project, getting the bidding, and all the engineering and the things that have to be done in preparation, it'll slip into the next fiscal year. So that's why $5 million of the $12 million, again, is from prior years. We do have toward the back of this monstrous document the detail for all of those SIP projects, and it breaks it out by the fiscal year. So we had a SIP 21. There's a few items still left over from that, SIP 23, and then also the SIP 24 items are all in detail. River Bluff has been a topic we've talked a lot about, so I wanted you to see we are in a better position there. There's significant improvement in terms of the operations out there. This year, we're budgeting income of $19,100,000. That includes an increase in the levy that I already referenced. We're increasing that by $919,000. We also, on the expense side, have reduced the administration fee that's charged by the county to River Bluff. The combination of the $900,000 increase in the levy and the $600,000 reduction in expense that we're charging them is $1.5 million to the benefit of River Bluff. In the projected actual, you see at the bottom there that we do see a substantially improved position. That $2.1 million projected positive does reflect and include the levy of $1.9 million for this year and an additional $1,337,000 transfer from the general fund over to River Bluff. I know it's a lot of content, even at a high level, and I'm respectful of the fact that you just got this book. You're going to have questions. Again, I'm available. I want to be available in whatever settings and formats that you want to take advantage of that offer. Please do so, and I appreciate your interest, and it's a privilege to work with the team that I have, not just within the finance department, but also beyond in all of the areas that work so hard on these budgets. And also privileged to work with each of you, so I'll look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Mr. Butita and then Mr. Booker.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schultz, for this presentation and for all the individuals involved in the process. The board is thankful to them also. I just want to note that next week's Finance Committee meets Thursday. One of the agenda items is discussion of changes to the budget. Now, we've only got the budget tonight, so there may be changes that go right up to the final vote, but that's going to be an opportunity for board members. If you have want to make input into the budget, that's a good opportunity to do it at the committee level next Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petita. Mr. Booker, did you have your hand up? No? Any other questions for Mr. Schultz from board members? No? Well, thank you, Mr. Schultz. Great presentation. Thank you. Mr. Webster, motions to adjourn. Is there a second by Mr. Thompson? All in favor of the adjournment, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.